Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Native American and Reservation Stories thread, taking a climbing trip around Halloween of 2021, climbing in an area near a Native American reservation outside of Pyramid Lake. Place is in the Limbo Range near Purgatory Peak, going to stay a few days, bouldering and camping with my friends. Apparently a lot of weird stuff happens around Pyramid Lake, but I've been climbing and camping in the vicinity of Pyramid Lake plenty of times, and I've never seen anything strange except for harmless tweakers. Pull off the highway onto a large, well-kept gravel road since our climbing destination is somewhere in the mountains. Main gravel road is well-kept. We assumed it was because it was used by Chugg hunters and maybe maintenance people used it since power lines ran along the road as well. Tons of little offshoot dirt roads. All of them are really washed due to recent rain and snowstorms, so they are really bad to drive on. The first offshoot dirt road looks like it will not lead to our destination at all, so we don't take it. The second offshoot road looks like it leads up to the mountain, so we take it. Only vague idea of where we are going. No GPS or anything. Just looking for rocks. The second does not actually lead up into the mountains. It leads around them, and the road is exceptionally washed out, so we turn back. The fourth side dirt road was the one that actually took us to our destination, but once we got to a large uphill portion of the road, it was too washed out to continue. Maybe a few miles away from the highway and main gravel road. Not ideal, but we haven't seen anyone all day. We decide to set up just below the uphill portion of the road, figure no one will be out here. We don't block the road, but we set up our tent and park our cars essentially alongside the dirt road. The place is completely dead. No one is around for miles, just the way I like it. The highway is completely dead too, doesn't really go anywhere important if you know the area. Have two other friends show up during the day. One has a car that can make it. He can see our car from the main gravel road, and he makes the same mistake we did and takes the second dirt path as it looks like it leads directly to our camp before he realizes it's too washed out and has to turn back. Other friend's car is in the shop. He arrives in his dad's Lexus and parks close to the highway, and we pick him up and give him a ride to our camp. Fun day of bouldering and other degenerate activity. Also, there was some sort of tarantula migration going on during the time we were there, so there were a bunch of huge spiders around when the sun started going down. Around 9 p.m., chilling, drinking, looking at the stars. After not seeing anyone coming down the highway pretty much all night, I can see headlights coming down the highway. Who gives a damn .res? It is a highway after all. 10 minutes later, drunk. I say, wow, the cars on the highway are going so fast, but they're so far away it looks like they're not moving. I am a dumb drunk. MP3. I continued to watch for a minute and saw that the car was, in fact, not moving, and a lot closer than I thought it was. After another minute, I started to come to my senses and figured out they were on the main gravel road, parked next to my friend's Lexus. LOL.x. Figure they are robbing the Lexus and start to kick with my other friends while the Lexus friend starts to bemoan the situation. He's actually pretty cool about it considering. One friend pulls out a pair of binoculars to confirm. Yeah, they are parked by the Lexus. He can't see them doing anything. We all agree it's best to just let them do whatever they're going to do, then let them leave and assess the damage and leave ourselves if we have to. I don't want to die over Daddy's Lexus. We watch them for a while and the car starts flashing its headlights. Oh no. Jar. We are all wearing headlamps so they can see exactly where we are, and that we are looking at them. Could see someone get out of the back seat and start flashing their headlamp at us as soon after the brights started flashing. This went on for a little bit. Stoner friends and I pondered what they wanted and if we should go over if they needed help. Another person gets out of the passenger seat and yells, "Help," in a very monotone voice. Get scared, turn my headlamp off, debating over what they could need and if we should go since they have a working car. The area has decent cell phone reception, and the Paiute reservation less than 20 minutes away. Car starts driving towards us. Start frantically packing stuff up, arming selves with knives just in case. They made the same mistake and drove down the dirt path that didn't lead to us, eventually having to turn around. Everyone is revealed, hoping they just leave. Scared, but their behavior is explainable at this point. They drive back to the main gravel road and they turn their car off. Wait there for about 10 minutes, we continue to watch them with the binoculars. Car starts up again and drives almost to the highway, almost pulls on, but the car parks again and all lights shut off. After another 10 minutes, the car starts up again. drives onto the highway, pulls off to the side of the highway and waits for another 15 minutes. If we weren't paying close attention and had the binoculars, we would have never known the car hadn't just left. The car pulls onto the highway without its lights on and drives off towards the reservation, out of sight around a bend in the road. Starting freaking out about what to do, paranoid they were coming back with a better car and more people. Me and one friend decide to leave. Other friends decide to hike up into mountains and sleep in a boulder field so they are harder to find. Never been more paranoid in my life driving up to friend's Lexus, thinking it will be trashed. The car is untouched as far as we can tell. Drive down the road. About 30 minutes down the road, we see a car parked on the side of the road with its lights turned off. Nothing happens when we drive past, but it's definitely the same car. Car looks empty as well. I always wonder if we were about to be killed by natives that were pissed we were on their land. If they were trying to warn us about something or help us, or if we just ditched someone that needed help. The friends that stayed remained unmurdered. Wonder if I was about to get killed by Native Americans, if we ditched someone that needed help, if they were trying to warn us about something, or if they were just playing a prank on us. Can never figure out why they were seemingly waiting for us with their lights off, or why they drove off without their lights on the last time we saw them. Strange all around.
Says on Wiki that it's been closed since 2018 for camping and stuff because of desecration, so either BS or you guys didn't know that, and they were trying to tell you to leave.
The Limbo Range is Bureau of Land Management land. No signage or notices not to camp coming into the area, so I assumed it was free to camp like anywhere else on Bureau of Land Management land. I could be wrong though.
I live in the northwest part of New Mexico, and during the summer of 1992, I heard the weirdest story ever. My grandmother, being Navajo, lives about an hour south of where I live. It's a quiet and isolated part of the Navajo reservation. There's no running water, no electricity, no utilities whatsoever. I used to travel there on weekends to check up on my grandmother and my mother. One summer weekend, we took my grandmother over to her older sister's house to check on her, haul water, and bring her some much-needed supplies. My grandma's sister is the oldest and lives alone in a two-room house. The entry of the house is used as a living room and a kitchen. The bedroom is another room separated by a wall adjacent to the kitchen. She is very old-fashioned and has no electronics and is isolated from the rest of the world. She does not speak English and only speaks Navajo. Her only advanced technology is an old AM radio and a D-cell flashlight. When we arrived, she told us the strangest story. She said that one night she woke up and her room was totally lit up. She said it was like the sun came up and she thought she overslept. The lady is awake before the sun is up, and she usually does her morning prayers before the sun is up, so she was somewhat distressed that she had slept in that long. She said that she sat up in her bed and started to walk into her kitchen. Then all of a sudden it went dark. It gets dark on the reservation, so dark that most times you can't even see your hand in front of your face. She was startled and went back to bed. A few nights later, she was awakened by the dishes in her kitchen banging together. She said that her room was lit up again just like before. She said the sun came up and she got up to investigate what was making the noise. As she walked towards the doorway, she heard a little child run across the doorway. She was surprised, and when she got to the doorway, she saw the little children run and hide from her. She got upset and grabbed her broom. When she grabbed her broom, it darkened again. Everything was quiet and dark. No little children in sight. She was upset and wanted to know what was going on. She asked us if we had any information on what was going on and why in her house. She thought it was skinwalkers using their witchcraft on her, but she couldn't explain what was going on. In the back of my mind, I was thinking she was being visited by aliens. She's never talked like this before, and how can she accurately describe a gray alien? She said that they were very small, gray, and had a large head. She's had no interaction with the outside world, nor does she have any idea what an alien is. A week went by and we were concerned for her and went back for the following weekend. She said that the little children visited her again. This time she said she just covered her head with a blanket and lay quietly in bed. She said that they were in her room digging around. When they were by her bed, she coughed and they left the room and continued to dig around in the kitchen. They dug around and then they left. I don't know why they were visiting her and what they were looking for. After mentioning these incidents to the rest of the family, it was decided to take her to a senior care home. She never talked about her visitors again. There are numerous sightings on the reservation. I've also seen strange lights. I wonder what these little children were.
I live out in the middle of the desert in northern Arizona. Occasionally, I found myself driving through the Navajo reservation, known by those who live there as the Rez. Now I know what you're thinking. An empty desert must be peaceful to drive through. Sure, in the daytime, yes. But once that sun sets, there is no light. Cell phones mostly don't work, and it's hours of driving through empty open desert dotted by the random, busted-up house. Since there is no light, all you see is what your headlights reflect off of. And no matter how bright your lights are, they never seem bright enough. I was coming back from Telluride late one night because I stupidly thought it was a good idea to agree to have a late dinner with a friend. Everything is normal. 1 or 2 cars every 5 to 10 minutes. Random gusts of red dirt blast the car from time to time. I was listening to an old Radiohead album to keep awake. As I'm staring out into the darkness, keeping the car in between the 2 white lines, I see something up ahead on the shoulder of the road. It appeared to be a human shape, but that made no sense because this stretch of road was desolate, like not even a sheep farmer lived out here, nor should anyone just be out walking this road for any reason. As I get closer, I can see what looks like a white dress, but where's the face? Why don't I see a face? Where is its face? My heart starts beating quickly, and I'm not sure whether to slow down, stop the car right there, turn around, or floor it. I get closer and see that whatever it is, its hair is covering its face. Long, black, stringy, straight hair. The ring is pretty close to how she looked. The weird part is it just stood there seemingly staring at me as I got closer. The amount of shivers I had at this point almost kept me from breathing. Screw this so much. I hit the gas and prayed that the car wouldn't break down. I felt relieved yet completely disturbed all at the same time. Not even a few minutes later, I get this bad feeling, and next to my window is the person running next to my car. I look down at the speedometer because I don't understand what the hell is going on. It reads 70 miles per hour. I look over again, and it's still there, running in the middle of the night in the middle of the desert. I start screaming like a disturbed mental patient getting cold water poured on them and floor the gas pedal. It took at least 10 minutes for me to want to even consider looking over to my side. When I finally did, all I saw was darkness. It didn't make me feel a bit better, and I just kept driving. It later occurred to me that the reason it was covering its face with its hair was so that I wouldn't see its eyes reflect my headlights. Since they have embodied a predatory animal, their eyes glow at night when lights are shown into it. Never driven on the Rez at night since. Good night.
The Zuni Pueblo dancers are known for their brightly colored clothing and beautiful dancing. One of their dances is called the deer dance. In the following story, a woman in Santa Clara, New Mexico, went to watch her Zuni friend perform the deer dance with a troupe. She noted that the dancers wore bells on their ankles, and that they used sticks with bells to stomp the ground. She also noted that these bells had a distinctive ring to them. After the show, the woman and her friend drove back together to his place and stayed in his car a while, shooting the breeze. What follows is her account of what happened next. Pic related, Zuni dancers. My buddy lives in Santa Clara Pueblo, pretty close to the river, and is actually like the last line of houses before you go to the forest. Anyways, I got out of the car and started hearing bells, and I'd thought I'd heard that sound before, so I looked around but couldn't really see anything. Then I realized it was the same sound and rhythm that the dancers' bells made. I knew no one should be dancing this late, 10 p.m., so I thought it was so weird. Across the street, where the light from the porch light couldn't reach, there was a stop sign, and beside this stop sign was where the bells were ringing in rhythm. First, I see a shadow of a person dancing. It was wearing deer dancer attire, except it looked like something the ancestors used to wear. Today they wear leathers and skins, but this one was wearing a loincloth. But something was odd about it, so I stood watching it, and it was like it was hypnotizing me with its dancing. Then I realized it was taller than the stop sign. That's like 10 to 12 feet at least. So I look again and I realize it's a giant shadow being that is like 12 feet tall, dancing like it wanted me to see it, which they are said to do here. Only women are supposed to be able to see the deer dancers before dusk and feed them. It had huge elk horns like 6 feet across. The torso was like a barrel, probably 5 feet, in diameter. I'd say the arms were 2 feet in diameter and the thighs were like the same, equal proportions. The shadow being was muscular, just ripped like a bodybuilder. At that time, my friend comes out of the car and asks, "What is that noise?" Me being stuck, I just couldn't say anything but stare. And then he sees it and starts spitting at it. He tells me to get inside quickly, but he goes towards it and tells it something in Tewa, Tanoan language spoken by Pueblo people. Then he comes inside. I was like, "What was that?" And he just says it's a chug. I still don't know what it means, but that was one of the biggest shadow people I've ever seen. Note, the woman found out later that Chugg means an evil witch. This happened around the summer of 2009 to 2010 in Santa Clara Pueblo, 1 mile west of Espanola, New Mexico, 15 miles east of Los Alamos.
Okay, 2 of my dad's experiences. Background. Dad was an LDS missionary on the Navajo reservation in the Four Corners area. At least twice he had close encounters with persons and beings he believed to have been skinwalkers. The first event occurred with both my dad and his missionary friend present. They were studying scriptures in a rented trailer. They'd rented it from a Navajo man who later wound up in jail for drugs, I think. I'll refer to this Navajo man as Bob, for simplicity's sake. So Dad and his friend are in their rented trailer studying the scriptures, sitting just a couple of yards from each other, when Dad suddenly notices a strange older Navajo man standing right in front of him. Dad hadn't seen him enter and had no idea how the man had got there. So the old man asks, in Navajo, "Where is my son, Bob?" Dad, completely surprised, simply replied, "He's not here." He was too afraid to upset the old man, so Dad conveniently left out that Bob was in jail. Anyway, Dad looked over at his friend, who was also staring in shock at the old Navajo. When Dad looked back, the old man was gone. He was there one moment and gone the next, in the blink of an eye. Dad and his friend jumped to their feet and searched the trailer. The door was locked and the windows shut. There was simply no way to get in and out without being noticed. They both asked around afterwards, and the locals claimed that Bob's dad had been involved in black magic, but they wouldn't say anything more about it. This next story occurred a few months later. Dad and his friend were headed home in their Jeep at night between 9 and 10 p.m. This is southeast Utah and northeast Arizona, and they were driving through a little valley on their way home. The valley was actually known for having some ceremonial significance to the Navajo, so Dad's driving and his friend is napping in the passenger seat. As they get to the middle of the valley, the Jeep suddenly dies and rolls to a stop. No lights, no electricity, no power at all. Just completely dead. Dad steps out and opens the hood. As he's working on getting the Jeep to start, he notices several dark shapes approaching and encircling the car at a small distance. They're swaying and moaning something that Dad can't understand. Scared, Dad reaches over and shakes his friend to wake him. No matter how hard Dad shakes him, his friend won't wake up. The encircling dark shapes are now getting closer. Completely terrified now, Dad does the only thing he can: pray, and pray hard. Suddenly, the electricity and lights of the Jeep come back on. The moment the headlights came back on, the dark shapes were gone without a trace. Dad then jumps inside, starts the engine, and floors it out of the valley. Only then does his friend wake up. He wants to know why they're speeding, and Dad explains the whole thing to him. My dad has always been an honest religious man, so I believe him to be telling the truth. I work with a Navajo co-worker, and one time I told her about my dad's experiences. She said that they're totally consistent with what she knows about skinwalkers. I asked her if she could tell me any more about them, and she outright refused. In fact, I got the impression that if I pushed the topic, I'd be on thin ice with her. All she'd tell me was, there are very real evil things in the world.
Growing up, I lived in northeastern Arizona, literally about 5 miles south of the Navajo reservation in Winslow, or the Rez as everyone called it. Naturally, being that close to the Rez, skinwalkers were a huge topic of conversation amongst the locals, and we all took it very seriously. I have my own personal story. When I was about 15 or 16, my brother had a girlfriend that lived in a small community south of Winslow called Starlight Pines, about 25 miles away from our home. Well, we drove out to go see her one day, and about 15 miles out, we saw a native guy standing on the side of the road. This was quite odd because the Rez was north of town. It was rare to see anyone on foot south of town because it's just desert and forest for literally 80 miles. Anyway, we passed this guy on the side of the road. Flannel shirt, jeans, nothing striking about him. We got to Starlight Pines and hung out with my brother's girlfriend and her family. It was well into the night when we decided to head back home. My brother and I hopped in his truck, a Chevy S10, and drove back the way we came. We saw the native dude again in the same spot as before. He was still just standing there. I remember thinking, that dude is crazy standing out there all day and into the night. What's he doing? Right as we pass him, we hear a loud bang from the back of the truck. At first, I thought we hit an animal, but I hadn't felt anything that we'd run over. I turned around and looked out the back window. My brother started to slow down, thinking there may be something wrong with the truck. In the shining brake lights, I see the native guy chasing after us. We were easily going 55 to 60 at this point as we were about to stop. The guy is on the road, literally feet behind us. I scream at my brother not to stop. "Gun it, man, gun it." He does, but since it was a Chevy S10, it had a speed governor on it that capped at 80. For 2 solid miles, this guy keeps up with us. We are seriously freaking out. I asked my brother, what if we don't make it back to town? Those 2 miles seemed to stretch forever, but then I looked back and he was gone. We got home, booked it into the house, and told our parents. Next morning, I get up to head somewhere and look at my brother's truck thinking about the night before. I wondered what the loud bang was. I inspected the truck, which was covered in dust. In the dust, I saw a streaked hand print down the back end of the truck. I never went out there again.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.